so great to see you back again, Ed. It's been a while.
Larry,
Yeah.
live and in living color. Hello. It's been a while since I've seen you in person, or at least in digital.
This is true. You've been on the road for a bit.
I was very fortunate to be able to take a couple months off and do some traveling and headed over to the other side of the pond.
That's great. Of all the places that you visited, I know that you went to several countries. Which was your favorite? Which did you like the most?
Well, oh gosh, that's a Sophie's Choice question, isn't it? Well, I would have to say, undoubtedly, the single most fascinating, enjoyable, interesting for me, especially as a student of history, has to be the Parthenon on top of the Acropolis. We were fortunate to have an Airbnb where we could see
Oh,
it from our hotel room. You stop and you get something to eat at the bottom of the hill, and you look up at it, and you finally climb to the top. It's just overwhelming. 2,700 years ago,
oh,
they built this amazing piece of architectural, long-lasting history. It's just overwhelming. It really was.
it sounds magnificent. I have never been, but definitely on my.
Oh, Anya, I want to go back to Greece for another 3 weeks because there's just so much more to see that I missed. As far as which country, I would say that the Balkan countries, Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and there's even a Republic of Srpska. I didn't even know there was a Republic of Srpska. SKRSPKA. They're very homogeneous. They're very similar. Of course, Croatia's on the coast, so that makes it more beautiful. But when you go from I hate to say first to second world country, but when you go to a country that's so different from our own,
Mm.
and it's just fascinating to get absorbed in the culture. You're driving down the road and you see people grilling sheep on their front lawn.
Oh, wow.
It, just and I did one of the shows, remarkably literate countries as well. I was just overwhelmed by the number of bookstores in Serbia,
Oh, my.
and the statuary, the bronze statues that they have of their literary giants going back 400 years, just shows the amount of respect that they have for literature. You travel this country and we see statues of Washington and Lincoln and Ulysses S. Grant, but I mean, how often do you see a bronze statue of Mark Twain or Ernest Hemingway?
Good point.
Yeah,
Good point.
not very often.
No.
You ready for the holidays, Larry?
Oh, the holidays around here are always very interesting. This has always been my wife's holiday, her side of the family. And so for the last 52 years, we've had an influx of, it used to be sort of, we could handle it, maybe 10 or 15 people. But as the kids grow up and get girlfriends and then get married and then have children themselves, I think we're expecting 25 people for the holidays this year.
Ooh, delate.
Most of them will be staying with us, so it's a crowded house, but fun, lots of fun.
Well, you know what Benjamin Franklin said about house guests.
Yes, I do, and I won't repeat it for fear that one of them will see the broadcast.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of a romantic, and I love family traditions.
Yes.
One of my traditions is many years ago, actually 38 years ago now. My wife and I said, okay, let's go to midnight mass, which back then was at midnight. And so before we go to mass, we'll stop and get something to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So we leave the house around 10 o'clock. Well, duh, what were we thinking? Nothing is open on Christmas Eve except for
Chinese places. Yes, right.
So for the last 40 years almost, I've been going to have Chinese food on Christmas Eve and then go to Christmas Mass.
Yes, with all of my Jewish brethren. Yes.
Yeah. Whatever your family holidays are, it's so important to have those traditions, share them with the young ones, and hopefully one or two of them will rub off and maybe they'll continue it on with their children.
That would be our hope.
Yeah, very good. All right, Larry. Well, I think it's about time to start the show here. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, wherever you happen to be and wherever you're logging in from. This is the Rare Book Cafe, the Book Lovers Rendezvous. And this is going to be our final show of the year. We will be on a hiatus until January, when we will return with a brand new shows about books and the people who love them, and that's YOUU. We've got some great guests lined up for next year, and we've got some great guests and regulars on the show with us today. You can see with me on the screen here. Here's Larry Rakow of Wonderland Books in Cleveland Heights. Hi, Larry.
Yeah.
Cleveland Heights, Ohio, who specializes in children's books, especially mechanical ones with moving parts. You're going to be sharing some of those with us today?
That will be part of the presentation that we do today.
Moving parts will be part. Okay. And then we're going to have David Hess, the ever popular David Hess, with a recorded session on things found in old books. And he's got a couple of items for us today that stretch back decades. Also, our live guest today is going to be Barbara Loe, who's on the board of directors from the Ephemeral Society of America, ESA. And she's going to be doing a little bit backwards looking into Christmas of the 19th century. Larry, have you ever seen any of those Dickens villages that some people put up talking about 19th century Christmas?
Amazingly enough, let me see how I can point correctly here. Up there. No,
Okay.
no, the other place. I actually have one of them, and it relates directly to what we're going to be talking about today. Yes, I have seen those. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Very good. Yeah, I love those things. When I was young, I had a train set, and with the train set with little plastic houses you had to put together,
yes.
and you put together this little village. Another Christmas tradition that's always good to drag out of the closet. And finally on the show today, our co-host Lee Lynn will have a follow-up to her recent trip to visit cafe regular Mary Kay Watson. Lee is a bookseller and a book collector from Calhoun, Georgia. And so, of course, Lee stopped along the way on the drive back, and she's going to share with us some of the books that she found when she drove home. We'll catch up with cafe regulars Gigi Best, the road warrior Richard Morey, and our other favorite illustrator, Mary Kay Watson, her very own self, after the holidays, as well as some new guests and old friends. Okay, everybody, this show is being pre-recorded before Thanksgiving, and it's going to be published on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. As most of you know, we drop the show at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time on Facebook and on YouTube. And we also drop Rare Book Cafe Raw, the audio outtake, wherever you can find your favorite podcaster. That's where you'll find Rare Book Cafe Raw. Whatever you do this week, I hope you eat too much turkey and stuffing and then flop down in the couch and stare at the television for 2 hours. No, only kidding. Whatever your family traditions are, enjoy them. And if shopping is one of your family traditions on the day after Thanksgiving, don't forget your small, local, independent booksellers. Books make great gifts, and you get to get out of the house after the last 20 months of pandemic and see actual human beings and support your local independent bookstore and buy some wonderful presents. Larry Rakow from Wonderland Books, what do you got for us today?
Well, I was trying to figure out a theme for this, and I think the best theme is serving two masters. It's difficult. I don't know about you, Ed, but I have been collecting one thing or another since I was a kid. My wife insists that this is just some sort of genetic predisposition that some folks have and some folks do not. And I have had it. I mean, starting out with all of the regular things, baseball cards and Davy Crockett cards and so on, going up through science fiction magazines when I was a teen and other things. And, now, many decades later, I actually have two major collections that I sustain in addition to being a bookseller. One of them you had mentioned earlier, which is movable books of various kinds, and I have a particular place in my heart for 19th century and early 20th century movable and pop-up books. And an equal fascination is with that comes from the same time period is magic lanterns. Now, I don't know how
Hmm.
much you know about magic lanterns, but magic
I
lan
don't personally know a lot, although I did handle some magic lantern slides about 2
yes,
years ago,
yeah.
and they were bought by a collector in France, if I recall. Are magic lanterns more popular internationally than here?
Not necessarily more popular, but certainly have an international fascination
Equally
and
popular.
equally popular, especially in Western Europe, France, Italy, England, of
Now,
course.
I only had the slides. Do you have an actual lantern?
I do. I have a
I bet you do.
lantern, but what amazes me about all of this, and I did some research on it and put together some stuff on it a couple of, well, about 10 years ago, is that it's amazing to me that the same sort of mechanisms that activate mechanical books were almost identical to the kind of mechanisms that activated magic lantern slides. Now, magic lantern slides, the kind of slides that you had, may well have been 3¼ by 4 inch
Right.
square slides, but
Yep.
before that, there were movable slides. This was the earliest attempt to portray motion on the screen.
Really?
And they were activated through a variety of ingenious mechanisms, almost all of which are, I won't say absolutely identical, but very, very similar to what was used in the same period for movable books of various
Hmm.
kinds. So I decided to put together a little presentation on the Victorian period and trying to go and give equal credit to both of my fascinations. We're getting a little bit off topic here as far as books are concerned, but at least half of this presentation will involve books. You know, when I was
Well,
looking,
we're also very involved in ephemera, and certainly
yeah,
the
that's
magic
true.
lantern falls squarely dead in the middle of the ephemera world.
Yes, and some of them are very square. They're about just like that. So at any rate, I was taking a look at some of the books that I have in my own collection that actually feature magic lantern slides. Here's a wonderful book that was published a short while ago, and all of it is illustrated with 19th century magic lantern slides. These are lantern slides that told the story of Alice in Wonderland. There's another one. Here's Guleesh and the King of France's Daughter. And it's actually subtitled, don't know whether you see it, A Magic Lantern Fairy Tale. And once again, instead of original illustrations, they have chosen to use 19th century magic lantern illustrations as the basis for this book. So let me see if I can get a screen share.
A quick question there, Larry. I noticed that
Sure.
the illustrations in that book are round.
Yes.
Was the projection of a magic lantern round, or was it the same proportions as the slide?
Right. No, the ones that appear round in that second book, for instance, were actually, just to use your imagination, these were round slides. I can't go and finish that, about that big or so. And then they were mounted in a square mount, like a
Okay.
rectangular mount, like so, about 4 inches by 7 inches long. So when projected on the screen, it would appear as a round image. The
Okay.
ones that you saw earlier on and the ones that you had would have been a square image on the
Okay.
screen.
Got it.
But yeah, just fascinating kind of stuff. Let me see what I can do here. Okay, because Victorians loved things that moved. And today we're going to be talking about magic lantern slides and various kinds of children's books. We're going back to the Victorian period. And of course, during that period, there were certain things that fostered both lantern slides and lectures and children's books. As far as lantern slides were concerned, this was really the start of the Industrial Revolution. And there were tremendous changes in terms of the way that work was done, how much machinery did that work as opposed to folks, and others. It was a period that universal education first became apparent and widespread. And these lantern slides and lectures were one of the ways of bringing the latest and the greatest in terms of discoveries, world travel, and other things to the population. And finally, there were scientific discoveries as well. Although the magic lantern itself had existed for centuries, really, This was the first time that they were able to create lantern projectors that were capable of filling an entire auditorium with a picture. And as far as children's and novelty books during that same Victorian period, there were advances in color printing that really made a world of difference in terms of what children were exposed to. The actual publishing for children, this is one of the golden ages of children's books. Prior to that, it's
excuse me, Larry, that was about the time of the introduction of chromolithography.
Oh, absolutely. This is when chromolithography was introduced, which is really an oil-based printing in which the color lies on the surface of the page. Just absolutely brilliant, beautiful color. And there were, of course, many publishers who took advantage to that, expanding the amount of material for children that was available. And finally, sort of hearkening back to the first also, to the lantern slides and lectures, this was a period of novelty and invention, and that found its way into children's books as well. Now, just a little bit about lantern slides. This is an etching that was created, in about 1790s, 1795 or so. And it's a picture of a phantasmagorial lantern show that was created by a showman named Robertson in Paris. And it was said that grown men would faint away at the signs of these specters magically appearing. And if you look on the left-hand side of this, you can actually see the lanternist going and showing these. This would be rear projection shown against a translucent screen so that the projector was not apparent to the people in the audience. Another one, this is more of a home show that was given and very, very popular during the Victorian period. And there were a lot of home projectors, really toy projectors that were created during this period of time, things that looked like this. And I'm sure that many of our listeners will have come across in antique shops the kind of slide that's shown here, a rectangular slide, sometimes with decals, sometimes hand painted, that would be used with these ingenious home projectors. Here are a couple that actually took on various shapes and just beautiful. This one in the form of a cottage, but still a magic lantern projector. These were the kind of slides that would be used and the kind of visions that would be projected up on the screen. Now, in addition to these home children's projectors, there were also professional lanternists. Here's a lanternist using actually a triunial projector, that is 3 lenses, and these were capable of astonishing special effects, fades, of course, and also superimposition of images that will allow images to change and be added to and go one into the other. And during this period of time, let's say 1880 to 1910 or so, when the lantern was supplanted by moving pictures to a great extent, these lecturers would go from town to town and city to city and present, hour and a half presentations on the latest and greatest that was going on, in addition to various comic slides and things along those lines. And at this point, I must say that since 1980, I have been performing as Professor Optics with my own lantern projector and putting on shows for people and so on. So,
how much fun!
It is great fun.
Larry, what were the subjects of these lecterns? Were they like newsreel, or like they bring people up to date on current events?
Absolutely. Most of them were not as focused and as pointed as that, but certainly included material like that. I have slide sets, for instance, that cover the Spanish-American War, other ones that cover the light and darkness of the great cities, talking about the Jacob Riis kind of stuff, the immigration to the cities and the poverty that people lived in. But in addition to that, this was also used to promote latest scientific discoveries. There are many astronomy sets that go and talk about the various new facts that are turning up about the solar system, as well as this was used as a social medium as well. And during this period of time, one of the greatest social ills was alcoholism and the temperance movement. And
Mm.
so there are loads of slides and slide sets that talk about the curse of alcohol and attempt to dissuade the population, primarily the male population.
Well, this is also the time
Yes.
of the great explorers, David
Yes. Oh,
Livingston,
absolutely.
Richard Burton, and there must have been and of course when the wealthy were going on Le Grand Tour,
Yes.
the Grand Tour of Europe. So there must have been a lot of travel and travelogue type
Huge,
of slides as
huge
well.
amounts of travel, huge amounts of travelogue. You can find sets on virtually every known country in the world to allow people to experience. And again, this was, although it was certainly attended by people of all social rank, this was really geared for the middle class to a large extent. And for people who would never have an opportunity of visiting England or France or Russia or India or Japan, and an opportunity to go and see what those countries looked like. Now, one of the things about them is that the lantern slides were the first attempt to portray motion on the screen well before the advent of the motion picture. And I'm just going to demonstrate one of the ways in which that was done. This is a single slip slide. During my show, I usually say something like, well, not many of you realize it, but Professor Optics is a vegetarian. That's right, I eat only things that grow from the ground or fall from the trees, even though my friends warn me that if I continue eating this strange dietary regimen, I can surely expect some strange physiological changes. And suddenly this will appear on the screen. And you can tell, I mean, you go back, back and forth and back and forth. And this was created by a piece of slipping glass like this. And you can see that the image above is the actual painted image on the slide, but there's a piece of glass underneath that can slip back and forth, and certain black areas will cover parts of the slide when it's in one position. When it's pulled to another position, it discloses a lot of the information on the slide.
How clever.
Yeah, just amazing kind of stuff. So during that period, that is during the Victorian period, more and more children's books, and now we'll be getting into the other side of things, more and more children's books included either references to, pictures of, or in various ways attempted to duplicate the kind of things that people saw in magic lantern shows. Here's a book from about 1880, 1885, One Day in a Baby's Life. And one of the pictures that they show inside is of a magic lantern show. Oh, how lovely a magic lantern, cry the children. All the little faces are raised and they see the magic lantern slide. Or something like this, which is a French abecedarian, a French ABC book. This is the cover of the book. But if you look up there on the very top, you'll see that the ABC is being created by a magic lantern. Now, this is, in 2021, it's a curious thing. But back when this was first published around the turn of the last century, this is something that everybody would have recognized and understood almost immediately. Here's a movable book, Novel Transformation Scenes. This is called Magic Pictures. And we see down here in the lower right, a little dog holding a magic lantern. And the magic lantern is actually creating the picture on the front of the cover. This dissolving views refers to something that happened with those triunial or biunial two lenses lanterns. And that is they were capable of fading one view into another, so that we see these circular views on the front. We even see a magic lantern showman, the lion on the front with his cane raised, and two musicians providing music for the show. But a dissolving view refers to something, well, in the simplest form, let's say, a view of a landscape during the summertime with trees in blossom and folks walking along a meadow in front of a house. And then it would magically dissolve in front of your eyes into an identical view, but of wintertime, with the entire scene shrouded in snow, with ice and snow, and a sled maybe being pulled across the front. And just to make it even more clear, this is the title page, Dissolving Views, a book of revolving pictures with verses that features a home lantern, a young boy entertaining his siblings with a Punch and Judy show with a lantern. This is a terrific Nister book published in this country by E.P. Dutton that also is from about 1890 or so. And one of the curious things about this book, well, it shows a magic lantern show on the cover, but this area of the cover here is actually made out of a translucent paper. And something is printed on the verso, on the back side of this. So when you hold up the cover to the light, it'll shine through and make it look as though something is being projected into that circle. In fact, every page of the book is created that way. So here's an interior page of the book. And here we see a young girl with some pets holding up a hoop. On the back of that page, you see a little dog jumping. So we'll have to use your imagination a little bit here. But when you hold this page up to the light, and this appears, you're seeing the dog jump through the hoop.
How clever.
And then one of my favorite books, and we'll pretty much end at this point, although there are many, many others. We had talked several months ago about Struwwelpeter, that is Slovenly Peter, and there's a wonderful, this is from the original Slovenly Peter. We see his hair is grown and his fingernails, and one of my favorite stories in the original Struwwelpeter, Slovenly Peter, is the story of Carrie and the Candles, or Pauline and the Matches. It's variously portrayed. But here we have this poor girl who has been told by her parents not to play with the matches when they leave the house. But does she listen to them? No. And eventually she catches on fire and is reduced to a pile of ashes. A wonderful story for children. In the Magic Lantern Struwwelpeter, this is a 19th century movable book. We have the Magic Lantern boy, showman, on the cover, going and showing folks in the audience the Struwwelpeter. Here's the title page. And here's the book itself. Here we can see Pauline and the Matches again being portrayed. Over here on the right, you'll see there's a little disc. Actually, this one is number 2 in the scenes, but when you go and rotate the disc, you'll actually get to another picture. Here's the final one of the cats crying over poor Pauline's ashes. So once again, the Magic Lantern was an absolutely well-known, well-regarded, and understood technology during the same period, the Victorian period, that appeared in many, many children's books. And I thought we'd end with some Magic Lantern slides, this being the season. You know, Santa Claus didn't always look like the Santa Claus that we know. St. Nick was portrayed in various ways. And before Thomas Nast actually created the kind of Santa Claus that we all know and love today, there were various depictions of him. Here is one from a Magic Lantern slide. Again, a movable slide. And I hope you get everything that you wish for this holiday season. Here's more of a Thomas Nast type Santa Claus. This is also from a series of Magic Lantern slides of the Visit of St. Nicholas. And ho, 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 here he goes. And you know that this is an American slide because in his sled, you can see the American flags. And then finally, after the holidays are over, Happy New Year to one and all.
Larry, you are a great guest for any dinner party.
Oh, thank you. Is that an invitation? Let me see. I could probably make tonight, if I catch one.
Wow, fascinating stuff. And
Yeah.
I couldn't help thinking in the early part of your presentation, the similarity of the old Magic Lantern shows to a modern Instagram page.
Yes.
Where people stare at their screen and swipe across and see a moving display of photos on their little handheld device.
Absolutely. I think, anybody who knows anything about art, many of these images are hand painted, either hand painted or black and white photographs that have been individually hand colored and tinted. And anyone who knows anything about art knows that the absolute worst thing that you can do for any real piece of painted artwork is to subject it to heat and light. I mean, that's a sure way of fading colors and destroying. And when you think about it, that's exactly what you're doing with magic lantern slides. My projector is fueled by 500-watt bulbs, and the metal casing of it gets so hot you can barely touch it during the course of a show. And so what a lot of lantern show people are doing now, collectors, is digitizing these so that they no longer have to be subjected to those really detrimental effects of heat and light. And some lantern shows are starting to show up on the internet. Anyone who is really interested can look up magic lanterns. The Magic Lantern Society of the United States and Canada has a terrific site, and there are others as well that really ought to be checked out.
So these early lanterns were electric.
Well, not the earliest lanterns. No, the earliest lanterns were either fueled by various kinds of oil, whale oil, kerosene, and so on. And the most dangerous illuminant that was used was limelight. I mean, I have some incredible illustrations that show a lanternist sitting with his lantern with two tubes coming out of the back of the lantern, one with a huge leather bag full of oxygen, and the other a huge leather bag full of hydrogen. And the gases would come up and be ignited on a little pellet of lime. You remember the old thing, oh, he's standing in the limelight. It was a
Yeah, of course.
Well,
that's the reference to that phrase?
That is it. This is a limelight illuminant, and these bags sometimes would split and whole theaters would go up in flames. So when electricity was introduced, which was probably in the 1890s, mid 1890s or so, this was a terrific boon for lanternists and lantern audiences who no longer had to, live in danger of their lives watching one of these shows. But yeah.
Wow, learn something new every day.
Another bit of trivia.
Yeah, well, you've been in the limelight for us today. We want to thank you very much.
It was great,
Dr. Optics.
Yeah.
You are certainly deserving of an honorary doctor degree from Case Western University, and I just might be in touch with them to let them know to give you a call.
Fair enough. Ed, thank you so much. I am so glad again to see you back.
And thank you for sharing, especially during this holidays. We look forward to seeing you next year, Larry, and you have a wonderful holiday with your family as well.
Same to you. Take care.
All right. Keep smiling. Bye-bye.
Will do.
All right, folks. That was interesting. I don't know about you, but I feel educated on our show today. We're always bringing you the finest guests that we can find to share with you little bits of knowledge about books that we otherwise would not have had. And rolling right into our next guest is going to be Barbara Loe, our periodic contributor from the Ephemera Society of America. And continuing in the theme of the show, Barbara is going to share with us some interesting Christmas material, also going back to the 19th century. Barbara, are you with us?
Can you see me?
And I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I pulled
that big smile on your face. What are you so happy about?
Well, hey, we're almost in the holiday season. So it's always exciting to share different things. So I pulled a number of different things today to show you. I'm going to start with some die cuts that illustrate, let's see, there we go. Nice Christmas scenes. One of the things you might notice on these is that when you're looking at earlier material, you very rarely see Santa in red. You see,
why is that?
Well, the whole concept of the red Santa came much later. Santa was really Saint Nicholas. He was out traveling and sharing with people. And it's one of the ways that you can really differentiate between the older material and newer material. So now I'm going to start getting into a couple of red ones. And of course, the image we have of Santa today is really, it comes from the Coca-Cola material that came out in the early 20th century. But as you see these older ones, where in France it was Père Noël, and in England it's Father Christmas, you don't see the red very much. But here we go. Here's your traditional Santa as we think of him today. And then I have a few angels.
Now these are all greeting. Are these all greeting cards, Barbara?
No, these are die cuts.
And what was their purpose? Just to be pretty and to set up around the house?
To be pretty and to put in scrapbooks. In England, they refer to them as scraps. Die cutting was the actual technology where you stamped it into the paper and you had a die that cut the design.
Mm-hmm.
And then so that's how you got the perfect edging and everything.
Okay.
And so in this country, we refer to them as die cuts. But in Europe, they're referred to as scraps. And that's where the term scrapbook came from, was that people would buy these scraps and they would make up scrapbooks. And, you know, I hadn't thought about pulling this, but I'm going to. So here's an old scrapbook from the period. And
is that something you put together or something you acquired?
Oh, no. This is from the 1800s. But you have to remember, this was from before. Let me see if I can get to some Christmassy stuff. Well, this one tends to be more Easter. But well, here's a good example. This is before electricity. This is before you know, you had different entertainments. And so people would sit and they would fill scrapbooks, and sometimes they would write things in them, and they would get scraps and they would put them in, or if somebody sent them a card or something. And so you would go and you would buy the scraps that you liked. And large ones, like this angel, were quite expensive. Whereas the smaller ones that I showed you at the beginning, and they could be very, very small. They could be, you know, an inch by an inch. Those were less expensive. And so
I don't imagine Amazon was around 150 years ago.
No.
Were these just local general stores or Woolworths?
This would have been
like
at your stationers. And a book and stationery store was a really vital store in the community.
Sure, of course.
So, and anyway, so that's where the scraps come from. And today we just think of them as decorative, and we enjoy them. But back then they would fill these books, and and they might have trade cards that they picked up at the general store, mm-hmm. or a reward of merit the student received, or you know, teachers would also give out scraps as rewards. You know, if you did a good job, you might get a really nice scrap like this. And that was a real treasure, because you have to think about, there wasn't a lot of color in people's homes back then.
No.
You know,
or
so
wall
the
coverings or paintings or
right,
anything
it was just
hanging on the wall.
Right. And so if you got something very colorful that you could display in your home, that was a real treat, you know? So then I pulled a bunch of different style Christmas cards. This is a 3-dimensional one, which you can see it flat, mm-hmm. but it will stand up, and you've got the 3-dimensional image there, where Santa's reaching out through the window. This is a very elaborate. Now, this would have been extremely expensive. This was a Christmas one, and it opens.
Ooh.
There we go. And you've got all those different dimensions. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 different depths of characters there.
Look at that.
Yeah. And showing, a family celebrating Christmas. Then you would have things like, now this would be a little bit later, but this is a coin card. So you would get this and you would place a quarter in the slot and give that, maybe to your grandchildren or children, whatever. But so you see these coin cards from time to time because that was a nice way. We have our gift cards today. This was their version of that.
I remember when I made my first communion and I got all these little cards and there was a oval cut out of the middle with the president's face in it. And it was so exciting to open that card up and go, ooh, Abraham Lincoln.
Whoa, that was a big score, right?
Yeah.
Not just a Washington.
An Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. So then I pulled,
How
just
fun.
some Victorian cards to kind of show you the idea of, the Victorian family celebrating Christmas. And, they're different views. So you can, once again, you can see how differently Santa Claus was portrayed back then.
Barbara, it seems as though gift giving was also something that was done as well back then. I mean, Santa's walking around with a bag of gifts. There must have been.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now it's a little different than today because usually it was like maybe one toy and an orange.
Sure.
Or something like that. So it was quite a bit more modest than what we think of today. But, Christmas could be represented in all different types of, things. Sometimes you're seeing, a fairy. This one I really like. You got the Boy Scouts wishing you a jolly Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one that
Richard Morey would like that one.
Yeah. Here's one that looks like a Valentine, but in fact, it's a Christmas greeting. Here's a mechanical one, which says, "Be yours, a legacy of Christmas." And then when you open it, you can see the maid is kicking up her skirt. A little risque.
Little risque.
And, here's another
Ooh
one.
la la.
Yeah, where you just open it up and you can have your message inside. Here's some that are a little bit later. This is a mechanical one where his arm moves up as he's either taking the ball out or putting it into the stocking. Now, that was more like around the 1920s. These are more Art Nouveau, Art Deco type designs. Back to Victorian. This is an interesting thing. This is really, I would say, could have been Christmas, but could have been Hanukkah. It's a matchbook. And these are actual matches that are still left with the Christmas
lighting
design.
the menorah.
Yeah. Two-sided ones. Here, the old man is chasing the kids. And then the cop is waiting for him on the other side. Here we have one that opens up and they're off on their bicycling journey. Polar bears were always popular. And this was around the time when Shackleton was doing his Antarctic exploration. And, you look at that late 19th century time period, and there was a lot of Arctic and Antarctic stuff. So you see a lot of things with polar bears and, exploration. Here's another two-sided one where they're not happy with the singers down below. So they're from their home, they're pouring water on them.
Now, these cards were actually sent to people.
Yes, they
Like
were.
we send holiday cards nowadays. That tradition
Yes.
goes back that far.
Yeah. So this is very elaborate. You open it up, you pull the string, and you have the nativity with the angels watching over the baby Jesus.
Oh.
And then it folds back up, and you can do that. And now I have
a quick question with respect to value. If the card is blank and never been used, does it have more value than one that was mailed and wished a Happy New Year 1897?
sometimes a lot of people like the messages because, you know, that's where you really get the sense of, I'm trying to see one here that has a message on the back. Where, you know, you get the sense of community. Usually people would put the name of the sender on the back.
Okay.
But I think there are some collectors that like the purity of something that's pristine and never been used. And there are other collectors that like to see it used.
The
you know, I always have,
familiarity and the attachment to a particular person.
yeah,
Especially
and
if that person can be traced.
I'll have people come up and say, do you have postally used cards?
Sure.
And they want to see the postmark and the message and the stamp and everything. So a little different kind of thing. And then
a great field we're involved in. I mean, everybody can find their own thing that gives them interest and collect in that direction.
well, and what's nice is you can start out inexpensively. That's what I like about ephemera. I've got some people that buy from me and they're looking for dollar cards. Sure. They're younger, they're in their 20s. They can't afford to spend $500 on a card like a more seasoned older collector can, you know? And so they're excited that they can find something for $1 or $5. Right. And then you have the at the high end where they're willing to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars. We like those at shows, but but I appreciate the others as well.
I appreciate the future of collecting, and just to hear that there are young people out there starting their own collections.
Yeah. So now I have a couple more special things to show you. So I have a sample of 4 Hold to Light cards, and you look at them, and oh, that's a nice card. Doesn't look real exciting, but then. Let's see if I can get the light. Can you see the image there?
I can, yeah.
Okay, so in this particular one, we've got Mary holding the baby Jesus and the shepherds are there paying tribute.
Just like the ones that Larry was pointing out, like the books and the magic lanterns that Larry was sharing with us a moment ago.
Illumination was a big thing. So here we have the shepherds in the field. But when you put the light up to it, you can see the angels in the sky.
Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing. Oh, yeah.
Here again.
Get me started with Christmas carols.
Well, now's the time, right? So this was a whole separate kind of a classification. Then you have, and this is one of the things I love about the Victorians. They had this macabre sense of life that shows up every now and then. So here's a Christmas card showing a shipwreck. But
that's a bit macabre.
There's the angel watching over them to make sure that they get back to safety. And this is an example of where you've got the message from the person that sent it. And then finally, I have a special treat. And that is, you know, we wonder about sometimes where our traditions come from. Well, this is, and I'm going to say right up front, this is a reproduction, not the original, but this is the first known commercial Christmas card.
Is that the one that sold for $1 million last year?
That'd be the one. Oh. But that, you know, if it sold for $1 million, that means it's the original. Okay. This is a reproduction, but it was done by De La Rue in 1881. So even in 1881, they were celebrating the discovery of that first Christmas card. And now we believe there are other earlier ones, but they were handmade and sent to people. This is believed to be, because you never know, the interesting thing about when you research this stuff is you always discover new things, but this is believed to be the first commercially printed Christmas card.
Okay.
And so that's kind of my little Christmas story for today. And
hold on, before you take that card down, did that open? Was that like a postcard, or did it open up for an inscription on the inside?
It had printing on the back.
Printing on the back.
But in this particular case, this printing is saying that this is a facsimile of the original.
Okay.
And because De La Rue was a major printer, and they would never want to have anyone believe that they copied or did, a reproduction without clearly labeling that it was a reproduction.
Okay.
So, but it's, we have debate. But yes, if you saw this being auctioned and it went for big bucks like that, that was the original. And it's very rare. There are not very many known copies.
Oh, or maybe it was one of the Getman fairs last Christmas that it was being shown and sold at. Maybe that's where I remember seeing it.
It could have been. I think somebody at one of the Getman fairs had either this or something else, and they put an insane price on it because they never really intended to sell it. They just wanted to show it off.
You probably have a couple of those things in your collection that are priced not to sell.
We used to have another collector that a dealer. Well, he was a collector dealer, and he used to have a theory that if you wanted to just show off some of your treasures, you'd put such an outrageous price on it that no one would ever buy it. But if somebody actually offered to pay you that money, you couldn't afford not to sell it.
That's right. I've got a couple of books just like that.
Yeah. So,
well, Barbara, a couple of personal questions before you head off. Do you have any holiday traditions in your family that year after year you look forward to?
Well,
whether it's a food or an event or a person.
Well, we're actually going through a transition right now because my husband and I hosted Christmas at our house for 30 years. And the whole family, extended family on both sides, came to our house and we did Christmas. Well, now that I've relocated to Florida, I'm going up to Minnesota to my daughter's. Yeah, there we go. Can't get rid of those coats and shoes yet. And so we're restarting as she creates her tradition, which is nice. But one of the things that I'm doing is, and I have boxes out in my dining room right now, because I'll never put up trees as big as what we did in Minnesota. And so I'm starting to take some of the ornaments that we all enjoyed as we decorated the tree for years and years, and I'm going to be bringing them to her. But one of our other traditions that we like is, because I go to London every year for the ephemera fair the first weekend of December, I always bring back English Christmas crackers. And, you see those on English movies where you pull the cracker and there's a, pardon?
Biscuits, or is that what they call biscuits?
No, they're like, they pop like a firecracker.
Oh, cracker. Oh.
They look like a firecracker, and you pull them and they pop, and they have a little toy inside,
sure.
a really cheap little toy, and they have a little crown that everybody puts on their head, and then there's a joke or a limerick or something. And so you all share those with each other. And so that's become part of our family tradition too, is don't forget to bring back the Christmas crackers. So,
Oh, that's great. That's a wonderful tradition.
so,
I hope.
and I'm actually leaving Wednesday to go to London. So
Excellent. Well, safe
I'm
travels to you.
excited about that. I'm going to be doing some shows over there and hopefully shopping and bringing back some exciting stuff.
And crackers.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So this is our last show of the year, Barbara. What's going on with the Ephemera Society of America next year? Any
Oh,
looking down the road?
Lots of big activities that we've got. Our March annual conference is back to being live again. We're so excited.
Okay, where's that going to be held?
That will be in Greenwich, Connecticut. And it's going to be on March 18th through the 20th. And Friday is the conference, and we'll have 9 different presentations. And this year's theme is creating spaces and places. And so we're very excited about that. And then we roll into a 2-day fair, which Marvin Getman puts on for us. And so it's a live fair. Yeah.
Well, the ESA does a great job with these educational seminars and opportunities that associated with. That's always a very important part of any show.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear you say that because that's my job. I'm in charge of that conference and getting the speakers and putting that together. And then one of the things that we're doing in January is last year, because we had to do it on Zoom because we couldn't have a live fair, we decided to have a preview event in January, and we had 2 speakers do a preview event. So we're going to do that again this year. So in January, we're going to have a preview event, and we're going to have 2 speakers. And one is going to be talking about the Dakota apartment building in New York.
Of course.
And the other one is going to be talking about the Woodward Gardens in San Francisco. So one is doing outside spaces and one is doing inside spaces. And that's going to be on January 14th. And the information is on the Ephemera Society webpage. Again, it's free. You just sign up on Zoom. You register and you sign up. And then that will be followed by a virtual fair.
I think that's at the ESA.com, right?
No, it's a .org. It's ephemerasociety.org.
Ephemerasociety.org. Okay, very good.
Right. And so we're real excited about that. So all told, we're really going to have 12 different presentations. So we've got a lot going on the first quarter of the year. And we're excited about that. And of course, you know, we have a number of book dealers that also participate in both the Ephemera Society virtual fair.
I do.
And the live fair. So we're, you know, so excited. There's just such a marriage between ephemera and books. And we just think that it's so important to keep that that marriage going.
Yeah.
And
well, I don't want to be too selfish here, but whatever you bring back from the show next week, I hope you don't sell right away so that you can share it with us in the new year. We'd love to see some ephemera from the other side of the pond and understand how it compares and contrasts to what we can find at our garage sales or antique stores or local ephemera and book dealers here in the United States.
Oh, I'd be happy to do that. That's something that I could do at the beginning of the year. Is we could do a session on English and or French or both, you know, ephemera, because it is different. It's fun and different in a different way, but it's still ephemera.
And it's still fun, and so are you. Barbara Loe, our periodic contributor on ephemera, ephemerasociety.org. Everybody dial in, plug it into your computer, check out the shows for next year and the tremendous educational opportunities that Barbara's putting forth for our industry. Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, thanks, and have happy holidays.
Happy holidays, happy holidays.
I know, we're ready for the music, right?
Oh, I love Christmas songs. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Now it's time for one of our favorite segments, Things Found in Old Books by David Hess of Orange Books in Orange County, California. Today, David is wearing a Doobies Taxiola t-shirt from the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I'll tell you what, I just love the t-shirts that he photographs and puts on his Instagram page. I think people come to his store just to show off their t-shirts, and David is no exception. Some of the things that he's found in books this week is an Instamatic disc return envelope from the 1990s. Anybody out there over the age of 50 probably remembers an Instamatic camera that you carried on your wrist to the World's Fair or wherever you were off vacationing, taking your holiday pictures. Also, one of David's viewers has shared a brochure from June 1967, which is the opening of a Sears and Roebuck in Orange, California. Sears and Roebuck, which eventually just became Sears, which eventually almost disappeared. I think the ephemera is probably in a little bit better shape than the store right now. Well, let's see exactly what it is that David's going to share with us today. David, take it away.
Hello, this is David Hess from the Bookman in Orange, California, welcoming you to the show today. The show is called Things Found in Old Books. Without further ado, let me show you some of the stuff that I found this week. It's been a very busy week. I got a lot of books coming in, and I find most of my stuff in the older books, not necessarily the newer books. I don't know. It might have been a thing for people with older books to save stuff. But so today, in this book, it's a little Willa Cather paperback, Alexander's Bridge. I don't really remember that title. Inside was a photograph, a cute little thing. It's hard to see. We'll have a nice picture up for you. And on the back, it's dated 1961. We have this woman in her backyard, supposedly, with her dog. And so there's a woman and her dog. And there she is for all to see. Very nice picture. In this book here, Jack Benny, I found a couple of things now. One was this envelope dated 1945. The book's from 1945, but the envelope it's 1944 actually. A little 3-cent stamp up there. It's mailed from somebody in Long Beach, California, to somebody also in Long Beach, California. And inside is a little note. And what it is the enclosed form, and the form is not here, must be signed by a parent presented to one of the leaders before any girl may be permitted to take part in this activity. This is a scout ruling and no exceptions can be made. So cyclers leave Bixby and Cerritos at 11:30 a.m., July 31st. Hikers leave at 10 a.m., same place, same day. All girls take a nose bag lunch. Nose bag lunch. Now, I'm sure people know what that is. I am not one of those people who knows what a nose bag lunch is. Please read the portion in your handbook that covers this activity in which you are interested. So that was in the envelope. I'm assuming it's from the same era, or it's just stuck in the envelope. I really don't know. But also in the same book, I found this thing here. Now, some of you older folks will know what this thing here is. It is an envelope, and what you do is you get your little Instamatic camera and you take pictures. It came on a little black cartridge. You take the pictures, and when you're done with your pictures, you put the cartridge in the bag, You seal the bag, put your name and address there, and it gets shipped to first class mail, rush to Clark Color Laboratories in LA, California. And basically it's going to cost you $1.25. And what you do, you would mail your film in and they'd mail you back your pictures. So if you took a crappy picture, you wouldn't know for a week or two it was crappy. In fact, I remember doing this actually and getting them back, and you start going through them and you say, wow, what a waste of money. I took some lousy pictures. Or you find some pleasant surprises, you know, a photo bomb. Anyway, that's how we used to do it. I think this is from the 70s, maybe the early 80s. I would say more like the 70s. Where we put the film in the bag and you mail it along. And then later on, it became like you had photomats you could drive up to and drop off your film there, and they'd have an hour delivery time. And then became drugstores, and eventually became a cell phone camera where you don't have to wait at all. You can look right away. The next book, How to Defend Yourself, Your Family, and Your Home. Complete Guide to Self-Protection. Well, inside that book, I found a little, and I've shared pocket calendars before, the Atlantic Richfield Company, Richfield Division, 1968 little pocket calendar. And we've all had those. But the front was really, really striking to me. It's a little bucolic scene of a country road with the little Richfield station there, looking clean as you would want. And cars are going by, and you stop there and you get your gas, and you continue on your beautiful little drive down the highway. At 1968. That's really cute. I love this card. And finally, a few episodes ago, I did one of the things I shared was an invitation to the grand opening of the Huntington Beach Mall out here in California. It was an invitation to come to the grand opening. And a customer of mine in the store had seen that episode. And so he brought this in that he found in a Time Life book. Now, I don't know if he bought it at our store or where he got his Time Life book, but he said that Time Life was in a little slipcase, so it might have been the art series. But it says Sears, Orange, Bookman Orange, same city. Grand Opening Handbook, June 21st, 1967. And what it is, you open it up, and I think they handed this out. I'm certain they handed this out to all the employees that were just being hired on, and you got your the main guy, the head honcho. And he writes a little letter about working at Sears. You got your different divisions, and you got the division managers. I mean, it was quite the operation. You got the draperies, curtains, and bedspreads. That Clyde Walters handled that. If you needed to talk to somebody. Paints, brushes, and wallpaper, that was Frank Scavetti. So, it tells you who was who here. And it says, make Sears Orange the friendliest place to shop. Monday through Saturday, 8 to 9:30. And here's a little schematic of the store, where everything is, all the departments. There's the auto service place down there. And that's pretty much it. And it's a really interesting looking thing. When I read deeper and look at it, it really is quite fascinating. And this here on the cover, you see the Sears right there, is actually still standing. I've driven by it many a time. And nowadays the parking lot pretty much looks like that. It's kind of empty. Sears, this one here is not doing too well right now, unfortunately. I think it's on its last leg. But in 1967, it was a young and vibrant new location here in the city of Orange. Well, that's all I have for today, and I want to thank you for stopping by. And if anybody out there has something they'd like to share, like Steve did here, please send me a photograph and a brief description of what you found, and I would love to share it here on this show. You can send it to oldbook@ebookman.com. That's oldbook@ebookman.com. And it would be my honor to share it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you soon. This is David from the Bookman in Orange saying bye-bye.
All right, David, always interesting, always exciting, always unpredictable. Things found in old books. And folks, if you find something in an old book that you picked up at your local used bookstore, shop local, please send it on to David, or at least send him a picture via our Facebook page, Rare Book Cafe, or via David's Instagram page. Or just let us know how to get in touch with David so that you can share some of the things that you found in your old books. All right, now we're moving on to my co-host, Lee Lynn. Lee will have a follow-up from her recent trip to visiting our cafe regular, Mary Kay Watson. Boy, would I have liked to have been a fly on that wall when those two got together. Well, maybe not. They might have been talking about me. In any case, I'm sure that Lee had a great time and found some marvelous treasures on her ride back from Morgantown, West Virginia. Lee, what'd you come up with?
As many of you know, I spent last week on what was going to be a vacation trip to visit Mary Kay and Dennis Watson in Morgantown, West Virginia. And of course, being a bookseller, it turned into a book buying trip. So last week we shared with you some of the video that Mary Kay and I took, but I've got a few specific books I'd like to show you today. The first one is called Black Misery. It is Langston Hughes's last production. It is a series of drawings with captions. Hughes finished the captions shortly before he died. The book was completed by the executors of his estate, one of whom was Arna Bontemps. The book is about children and comments that Black children might face. And it's kind of these are stereotypical remarks. And I think the book is valuable for white children and adults to avoid saying some of these things. For example, this page says, misery is when you have always heard the old folks say Mississippi is a place to be away from. And on your first day in a new school, the kids ask, are you from Mississippi? Another example, misery is when you can see all the other kids in the dark, but they claim they can't see you. And here's the picture that goes with that. It's a thought-provoking little book. This is a nice copy of it. And like I said, it was Hughes's last production. It's well worth taking a look at. On a lighter note, I found this beautiful edition of Edward Lear's The Owl and the Pussycat, a poem we all grew up with, at least people my age did, and have been reading to our children and our grandchildren. And it's illustrated by Jan Brett. And she went to the Caribbean to get inspiration for the drawings and the paintings, and they are really beautiful. Pussycat is very dressed up. You can see a little bit of her clothes here, I hope. The owl wears a nice plaid shirt. Looks a lot like Ed Markiewicz shirts. Ed will probably appreciate that. There is a lot going on under the sea and all of the pictures. It's really a pretty copy. And the nice thing about it is that it is autographed on the half title page by her. A nice autographed copy. Would make a really nice gift for a child that you know, or an adult who grew up with this story. A book that I found that is not so well known All of us, well, or at least know about Pearl Buck's books that were set in China, know that she spent years there, that her parents were missionaries. But this is a much later book called Death in the Castle. It's the only mystery that she ever wrote. It's set in England. A young man wants to buy an old castle and take it down piece by piece and rebuild it, I believe, in Connecticut. It is a first edition with a dust jacket in nice condition, and it is signed. So this was an interesting one, a book I never heard of, but I also didn't realize until I started researching it that she wrote 42 novels. That's a lot of books and a lot of writing. Another book I found, one of our favorite authors, Maurice Sendak. This is a book called We Are All in the Dumps with Jack and Guy. And it was a very late production of Sendak's, dedicated. Jack and Guy represent his brother Jack and his longtime partner Eugene. And these little boys wind up pretty much adopting a homeless child. And the scenes are set in the dump, in homeless areas where homeless people live. And it's a nice, well, I don't want to say nice, but it's a thought-provoking book. It's based on 2 nursery rhymes, but given a very Sendak touch to it. And I may be able to tell you, it's too, well, I can't tell you right off, but the end of it, the little boy, they've been seeing this little boy, Jack and Guy went out in the Rhine. They found a little boy with one black eye. Come, says Jack, let's knock him down on the head. No, says Guy, let's buy him some bread. You buy 1 loaf and I'll buy 2, and we'll bring him up as other folk do. So I think it's a good lesson in compassion and in seeing another side of the world. And while it certainly can be a children's book, I think it has a lot of application to adults as well. And it's, of course, an absolutely gorgeously illustrated book. And I don't think you can see it too well. But maybe if we can get the other pictures to work, we can. So those were 4 of the things that I bought. Another item that, well, let's see, I might can get it, is a first edition of Cannery Row. This is the 2nd state with the yellow boards, not the blue ones. And if I understand it correctly, the 2nd state was done as a 2nd printing before publication of the book. The dust jacket's kind of rough, but the book itself is not bad at all. Let's see, and it has some newspaper clippings in there that are kind of interesting. Let's see if I can get them out. Okay. Let's see. This is the St. Petersburg Times, Alan, and an article in here called "The Real Cannery Row" by Malcolm Jones. So perhaps this is someone that our St. Petersburg folks might have known. It's dated July 17th, 1988, and is a long article and a picture of Steinbeck receiving the Nobel Prize. So this is a little sample of the items that will be going up on my website, and some of them may be held back for a virtual book fair coming up in December, and Getman.com. And I also have a big stack of children's books that I'm holding back for the St. Petersburg Book Fair in April, where the theme is the Children's Hour. And so some of these really pretty first editions of some children's books are going to be available then. So it was a good trip. Bought about 100 different items and am busily scanning and writing them up right now. So take a look and see what you think. Thanks.
Okay, everybody, that's Lee Lynn, who will be back with us in the new year on the show. We'll catch up with our other cafe regulars, Gigi Best, the Road Warrior, Richard Morey, our famous favorite traveler, our inscrutable illustrator, Mary Kay Watson, after the holidays. All right, folks, that looks like we're getting on to the end of the show here, and I want to drink a toast to each of you. Yeah, it may be early, but you're worth it. A wee dram of the heartwarming, stomach-warming toast to you. It's been a great year. Thank you, 2021, to all of our guests, everybody involved in the show, and to our great executive producer, T. Allen Smith. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in 2001. Bye-bye, everybody.